My name is Lieutenant Colonel Nora Ellison, and the moment my mother saw the military police cruiser parked outside my Vermont manor, her smile disappeared. Not because she was surprised to see me, because she finally realized I wasn't alone. The irony was almost funny. For 20 years, my family had treated me like I barely existed. Every Christmas, there was always room for my younger brother Logan. Always room for his friends. Always room for his newest business idea. But somehow there was never room for me, the daughter who served overseas. The daughter who missed birthdays and holidays because she was deployed. The daughter who sent expensive gifts and received generic thank you texts 3 days later. I spent years convincing myself it wasn't intentional. Until last Christmas, I drove 5 hours through freezing rain carrying gifts for everyone. When I arrived, the house was already glowing with music and laughter. I knocked, the door opened, and my mother's face fell, not with happiness, with irritation. "Nora," she said, as if I had shown up at the wrong address. As if I wasn't her daughter. Inside, every chair was occupied, every plate was set, every stocking hung. Except mine. My seat didn't exist. Nobody had expected me. Nobody had planned for me. Logan barely looked up from his phone. My father muttered something about a misunderstanding, and my mother smiled tightly. "We thought you'd be busy." That was the moment something inside me finally stopped fighting. I spent my entire military career learning how to identify patterns. And the pattern was obvious. I was excluded. So after Christmas I disappeared. I changed my number, deleted old accounts, redirected my mail, stopped posting online, stopped giving my family access to my life. Then I bought Blackthorn Manor, an old stone estate hidden in the hills of Vermont, historic, private, protected, everything my childhood home had never been. For the first time in my life I had something that belonged entirely to me. No family expectations, no guilt, no manipulation, just peace. I thought that would be enough. I was wrong. Because the moment they discovered I owned something valuable, they suddenly remembered I existed. 3 days before Christmas, I heard engines climbing the long private road toward my property. Nobody came up that road by accident. I walked to the window, 2 black SUVs, a locksmith van, and my family. My mother stepped out first, elegant coat, perfect makeup. The same performance she'd used her entire life. My father followed, then Logan, and when I saw him unloading equipment cases and storage bins, I immediately understood. This wasn't a family visit, this was an operation. I walked down to the gate. My mother smiled. "Nora, sweetheart. Open the gate." I ignored the request. "How did you find me?" Logan grinned. "A tagged flooring photo online." My stomach tightened. They had tracked me, researched me, hunted me. My mother moved closer. "We're worried about you." I almost laughed. They hadn't worried when I spent Christmas alone. They hadn't worried during deployments. They hadn't worried when they ignored every milestone of my life. Now they were worried. Then Logan held up a document. "Good news," he said. "We already solved the living arrangements." The paper looked official. Shared occupancy agreement, family access rights, long-term residential protections, and at the bottom my signature, or at least a forgery of it. I stared at him. "This is fake." My mother immediately turned toward the locksmith. "She's confused." There it was, the story. The same story she'd been telling about me for years. Nora is emotional. Nora is difficult. Nora is unstable. Say it often enough and people stop questioning it. The locksmith shifted nervously. My father stepped forward. "We're only trying to help." Then Logan nodded toward the gate. The locksmith pulled out a drill. That was all I needed. I took out my phone and started recording. "What are you doing?" my mother asked. "Building evidence." For the first time all afternoon, nobody smiled. I called local authorities. A deputy arrived and immediately made the same mistake everyone always made. He listened to my mother. She cried. My father looked reasonable. Logan acted annoyed, and suddenly this wasn't attempted trespassing, it was a family dispute. I explained the forged document, the unauthorized entry, the locksmith, the commercial equipment. But my mother was already spinning the narrative. "Our daughter isn't well." The deputy hesitated. That hesitation was all Logan needed, because he immediately started unloading more equipment. Lighting kits, display racks, storage containers. I looked closer than I understood. They weren't moving in. They were launching a business. A Christmas venue. Using my house without permission. Logan was broke. My mother wanted the social prestige. My father wanted the profits. And all 3 of them believed they could take my property. Because they'd spent decades taking everything else. The deputy left the situation unresolved, a mistake. But fortunately I had spent 20 years learning preparation. I called Major Elena Vargas. Retired JAG officer, attorney. And one of the smartest people I'd ever worked with. She listened quietly, then asked one question. "Who owns the property?" "The Blackthorn Heritage Trust." Silence, then she laughed. Nora, they just made a very expensive mistake. Within minutes, she contacted the deputy. Certified ownership records arrived, trust documents arrived, legal protections arrived. And suddenly the entire situation changed. The forged agreement claimed authority that didn't legally exist. The occupancy rights were invalid. The signatures were fraudulent, and any commercial use violated preservation laws. My family had built their entire plan on assumptions. None of them were true. The deputy returned. His attitude had changed completely. He questioned my father, questioned Logan, questioned the paperwork. And within minutes their confidence began cracking. My mother tried interrupting. Elena cut her off through speakerphone. Concern does not arrive with a drill. Nobody had a response. The deputy ordered them off the property. Eventually they left. But before driving away, Logan damaged 2 security cameras and attempted changes to utility accounts using my personal information. That was his second mistake. Because now I had evidence of identity fraud. That night I built a case file, screenshots, videos, reports, timelines. Witness statements, military investigations teach patience. Evidence wins wars, and evidence was piling up. The next morning my mother launched her counterattack. Facebook, family groups, community pages. The story spread fast. Concerned parents. Troubled daughter, isolation, mental instability, victimhood. Thousands of words, not a single truth. The old version of me would have defended herself. This version simply archived everything, every post, every comment, every lie, evidence. Then Logan submitted permit inquiries using my address, trying to establish business records again, evidence. By noon, Elena had enough documentation to build something serious. Then I made a decision. I stopped acting like a daughter and started acting like an officer. I created conditions, Christmas Eve, Blackthorn Manor, a small heritage gathering, nothing public, nothing suspicious. Just witnesses, a local reporter, heritage board members, a retired locksmith, private security, and law enforcement standing by. The house appeared dark from outside, empty, vulnerable, waiting. At 7:14 p.m. my driveway sensor activated. 2 SUVs, 1 rental truck, headlights off. They thought they were being clever. They were actually documenting intent. Through the windows we watched them arrive. Logan carried a crowbar. My father carried another folder. My mother carried another performance. The second locksmith looked terrified. Good, he should have. Nobody interrupted. We let them continue, we let them prove everything. Then Logan struck the front door, once, twice, 3 times. The old wood cracked, the lock splintered, the frame broke, and Blackthorn Manor echoed with the sound of a felony. The door burst open. Logan stepped inside first, victorious, smiling. Then every light came on. The smile vanished. I stood at the foot of the staircase. Behind me stood witnesses, the reporter, the heritage board, the retired locksmith, private security, and Deputy Mason Cole. Nobody said anything for a moment. The silence was devastating. Then Caleb Dunn, the retired locksmith, looked at the broken frame. That's forced entry. Deputy Cole stepped forward, hands where I can see them. Panic spread immediately. My father started talking. My mother started crying. Logan started backing away. But evidence doesn't care about emotions. The crowbar lay on the floor. The forged documents were in hand. The witnesses had seen everything. The recordings were running. The lies were finished. You set us up, my mother whispered. I looked directly at her. No. I paused. I documented you. The room went silent again. Elena entered from the library carrying copies of every report. Identity fraud, forgery, attempted unlawful occupancy, commercial permit fraud, trespassing, property damage, everything. My father finally realized what had happened. For the first time in his life, being the reasonable man in the room wasn't enough. Because facts don't negotiate. Logan tried one last desperate argument. We just wanted to talk. I pointed at the crowbar. People who want to talk don't bring that. The deputy moved first. Handcuffs clicked around Logan's wrists. The sound echoed through the foyer. Then my father, then my mother. She stared at me in disbelief. Not sadness, not regret, disbelief. Because people like her never imagine consequences apply to them. As officers escorted her toward the door, she delivered one final line. After everything I did for you, I stepped closer. The snow blew through the broken doorway. The house remained warm behind me. And for the first time in my life, I felt absolutely nothing when she tried to make me feel guilty. Everything became clear. Every forgotten Christmas, every excuse, every manipulation, every lie. They had never wanted me. They wanted access to my time, my success, my resources, my property. And now that access was gone. Love doesn't forge signatures, I said quietly. Love doesn't break into someone's home. She had no answer. The handcuffs closed, not with shouting, not with revenge, with proof. A week later, Logan's business deals collapsed. Vendors withdrew, partnerships vanished. My father spent months dealing with attorneys. And my mother's reputation, the thing she valued above everything else, never fully recovered. The reporter published the evidence. The witnesses confirmed the timeline, and the story everyone believed for years finally died. Christmas night arrived. The house was quiet again. I stood alone beside the tree in Blackthorn Manor, a glass of wine in my hand, snow falling outside, firelight dancing across old stone walls. And for the first time in 34 years, I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I wasn't the extra chair. I wasn't the missing stocking. I wasn't the afterthought. I was simply the owner of my own life. And that Christmas, peace finally had my name on it.